Good afternoon, good evening, everybody, unless you're on the West Coast, in which case it is kind of afternoon. Welcome to LessonPix Live. It's been a long time since we've had you join us here. We're going to spend about an hour talking about LessonPix and what our friends over at Building Wings are doing, and our friends at UNC, and showing off new stuff and welcoming in the new school year. I hope you're all having a good time. I've got lots of old friends and a couple new ones, and I should probably get to introducing them. First, my wife isn't here. She left me. I mean, she didn't go very far, but she left me. There's a thunderstorm, so Lori's at home in case the storm knocks us out. So she's usually right here, but she is at home. So hi, dear. How are you?
Hello. You can see me, right?
I can see you.
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
you're great.
So, I didn't leave you. I'm not far. Just a few miles.
So Lori's our co-founder of LessonPix. We started this crazy company over a decade ago, and are still running it ourselves like crazy people. We have some of our old friends, dear friends is probably better. Beth Poss is with us. So speech pathologist, worked with us at LessonPix for a long time. Karen Erickson, a good friend of the company. And then the two people who are really driving this conversation, Maureen Donnelly, director of curriculum at Building Wings, and Allison Dennis is here. She's a expert in the specific things we're going to talk about, so we have detailed questions about it. She'll be here as well, right, everybody? Hi, how are you, Maureen?
I'm great.
Good. And Karen, you're good?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. All right, so we need to get started. We have a tight schedule. I have notes. I've been told I gotta keep moving. People's attention span is shrinking as AI makes us dumber, and so we need to keep moving. But let's if you're seeing us on Facebook or YouTube, go ahead and type a chat. We can see it. We can say neat stuff like, our good friends Alyssa's here, Selena's here, somebody at Building Wings. We could probably find out who that is, and Beth Waitlefavor from PRC. So if you're there, say hi. We'll say hi back. We can certainly hi from Colorado. Hi in Colorado, and we'll answer your questions. If you have questions because you think something we said is confusing us, stop us. If you've got other questions about either Building Wings or LessonPix, we do have a segment at the end where we can do some Q&A. But certainly, if something's confusing or somebody's mic's not working, just tell us. Right? We're suddenly down on YouTube. Somebody let us know. And let's get started. So let's start. I guess, Maureen, let's talk a little bit about Readtopia. Maybe we'll do it like this. And you look at that. So tell us a few of our people in our audience probably don't know Readtopia. A lot of the special ed groups will, but some of the speech paths, some of the gen ed teachers won't. You want to give us a little background on Building Wings and Readtopia and where we're coming from before we jump in too deep?
Sure. Should I start with my deck or just start talking?
Sure. Let's do that. There you go.
Okay. It's always fun to have something to look at. So first, I want to say thanks to Bill and Lori and Beth for hosting Dr. Allison Dennis and me, and also always to have time with Karen is wonderful. What a great opportunity it is for me to talk about Readtopia because I wasn't actually part of the development, so I can boast about it a little bit. So Readtopia was developed about 10 years ago. It's a subscription-based curriculum, and it was really designed to solve the needs of learners who are older, but who may yet not be able to sort of function in reading and writing capacities independently. And so it's really for the older kids who are still at the emergent stage, but maybe read and write like beginners.
You can ignore if I pop things up there. It's just people saying hi. You can ignore them. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm not sure how to advance my slide.
It's a normal. Use your PowerPoint that you're sharing.
Cool.
Hey, look at that.
Excellent. All right. So Readtopia, as I said, was developed a decade ago. And the funny thing about it is that, I think that Karen and David Copenhaver's book, Comprehensive Literacy for All, has just been like the rising tide that has lifted all of the boats in our field. Yep. But Readtopia was actually developed before it. And so the way I like to think about it is, first of all, if you're not familiar with Karen's book, I can boast on that too. I think it's the best $35.99 you can spend. It's a methods textbook, and it's based on 30 years of in-classroom research. And what I love about the book is that it tells these stories of kids, and it pairs that with the evidence. And it really gives you this sort of like very operational, very easy to sort of what, why, and how do we deliver comprehensive literacy to all kids. And so on the one hand, we have the book. Just so you know, Building Wings has a free comprehensive literacy book study. And one of the things that the research tells us is that the more that we can all row together, the better the outcomes are for our kids. So hop over to the Building Wings website if you'd like to sort of explore the free book study resources. I know I love a good book group myself. But beyond that, the Readtopia product is really some of the words we could use to describe it are explicit and systematic, aligned to standards. It's emergent through conventional. And really, Don gathered a bunch of people, including Karen and Caroline Musselwhite and others, and really developed this program based on the experience he had as a person who was impacted by dyslexia and didn't learn to read until he was in 9th grade. And so, sorry.
I can't make it go forward for you.
Yeah.
Use the arrow keys.
Yeah. So one of my favorite things about Readtopia is that, the text of Readtopia is that we're going to support all kids in learning to read and write. But the subtext of Readtopia is that it's built around these reading, social studies, science, really the content areas. And so one of the things we know to be true is that this integrated approach means that we can simultaneously support knowledge building, vocabulary, but also these emergent and beginning conventional literacy skills. And really, when I think about it, when I get into the product, you'll see what Don and the team had done is pull classic literature from the public domain and support, provide instruction support, implementation support, and differentiated text so that every student at every level can participate and be part of a learning and reading community. And so what I love about this sort of integrated approach to at the highest level teaching reading and writing, but below that, developing knowledge and skills, is that the instruction really does double duty. Students learn to read and write while they're also reading and writing to learn. So that's a really kind of appealing and important feature. One of the things I like to talk about is like, if you were to say like, well, tell me, how does Readtopia sort of stand out in the space of adapted curriculum? I would say we organize around these kind of 3 central things. One of them is this age-respectful content. Based on Don's experience of being a 14, 15-year-old and, really getting on the road to reading, he didn't want to read about babyish things, right? It was important to him and it was motivating to him to have content that was respectful of his intellect and also of his interests. And so he's always really sort of planted his flag on this age-respectful content. The other thing that I've always admired about the Readtopia product, even before I worked for Building Wings, was this incredible commitment that they made to implementation support, right? They didn't assume that this, if you just put out engaging texts and, interesting routines or activities for kids, that like the magic would happen. We really had to support teachers, because one of the things we know to be true is that teaching reading is an incredibly complex, interior, cognitive, linguistic process. It's hard in any circumstances, and it's especially hard when many of our kids aren't using speech to communicate. And the last thing, and this is sort of a passionate element of Don's, is that he understood from his experience about how important it is to provide rich and appealing multimedia to support both engagement and vocabulary building and background knowledge building. And so whether if you're in Readtopia, you might be in a submersible under the sea for the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. When you're in Readtopia Go, which is the sort of junior program to Readtopia for younger learners, you're experiencing these puppet shows that are introducing problems and Gertrude, the star robot's friends, come and collaborate and help her solve these problems. And they have these sort of repeated but varied formats so that the engagement grows. And we've had some really nice success and results from that. And so one of the things, if you've read Karen's book, is that she's built her sort of approach around this routinized approach to instruction. And so since most of our AAC users are beginning readers, writers, and communicators, we really often focus on these kind of emergent routines. And one of the powerful things about routines is they have benefits for our kids, but they also have benefits for us, right? And so one of the things I think really sets us free is with all of this implementation support, we can kind of learn these routines with our kids. And guess what? Practice makes progress. And so the more we do them, the more we learn. Likewise, our kids have some sort of complex conditions in which they have to organize in order to participate in learning. And the more that these routines are sort of operationalized, the more they can focus not on the tools and not on our expectations about what it is we're trying to teach. So that feels like a really powerful kind of sell for me, because I know that the more I do something, the better I get at it. So that's exciting. And then this is the last slide, and then I'm going to jump into the product. But basically, we, as part of our comprehensive approach, one of the sort of domains of learning is alphabet and phonics. And proudly, Readtopia, nobody's too anything to benefit from Readtopia instruction. We have these 3 sequences, learning letters, for kids who are either not yet able to demonstrate knowledge of the alphabet or have some knowledge but need continued support. We have learning letters plus, which is what we're building on that alphabet knowledge and starting to build and spell words. And then we have learning words, which is a spelling-based approach to phonics. And importantly, this spelling-based approach is particularly supportive of kids who don't typically use speech to communicate, right? Because it builds this capacity for writing. It makes learning active, and it's sort of by default inclusive. So no adaptations, no accommodations need to happen. This is really the sort of least common denominator for all learners. So now I'm going to jump into Readtopia, and I'm going to take you directly to the routines. And the reason I'm doing that is because there's an integration between our learning words sequence and LessonPix, but we'll get to that. So if I go into any of the thematic units,
you're still sharing your PowerPoint, sweetie.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We'll make it work. I promise.
How would I do that? Let's see.
So you probably unshare. I'll remove you. Unshare that one.
Okay.
And share the screen, the window or the screen you want. I just shared my whole screen, so it's easier. But whatever you share, I will put it on the board.
So can you see it now?
No.
Okay. Present.
There you go.
So it says share screen.
Yep.
Okay.
Choose your screen.
And I'm going to go here.
There you go.
There. Got it?
How about that?
Okay.
Look at that.
So now,
on the fly, tech support.
Yeah. I'm going to start again. So I'm going to start by accessing my thematic units. This presumes I'm a subscriber. I'm going to go into my favorite story. You can kind of get a sense of what these texts are like, leveled for the most beginning beginners all the way to beginning conventional. But here's Anne of Green Gables. And one of the things I can do is select this daily routines dropdown. And this is where I see this sort of group-facing, teacher-mediated instructional platform for engaging in alphabet and phonics. And for me, the most important part of that is the teacher-mediated, because what we've done is allow teachers to sort of build these groups and deliver this instruction in ways that she controls the pacing and she controls the experience for the kids. Because one of the things we know is that these relationships are such a big part of driving outcomes. So this is one way. This is really one way how you would access the sequences. But I also want to take you to the resources section, because if you're not really sure where to begin, one of the things you can always do is go to the assessments and progress monitoring, go to the placement tool, and you can see we have a placement tool for finding the right level of differentiated text. We have a placement tool for alphabet phonics. We also have placement tools for math, because as I said, it's an integrated approach. But I'm going to go back to the thematic units. I'm going to go back to Anne of Green Gables, and now I'm going to jump into the lesson. So this is how we get started. We can kind of see that no matter where we are, there's, I think just in the sequence, there's 130 plus lessons. I'm going to just jump into a lesson 76. And so I have a choice. First of all, I can see the words that we're going to build. I can see the grapheme phonemes that we're learning. I have a choice that I can start with a decodable book that's paired specifically to the skills that are being taught in this lesson, or I can just jump into the lesson. One of the things that I talked about before is that Karen's approach is really about operationalizing or building these kind of varied routines, but that we follow the same sequence in every lesson. And so in this way, we get better at teaching them, our kids get better, at knowing what's expected of them and engaging with that. And this is sort of a clickable nav bar. So you can jump around to the steps if you want and get, if you left off at step 4. But I'm going to start at step 1 and just very quickly, because I don't want to take up too much time, go through all of them. So one of the things that we have here is our say and do guidance, right? We wanted to make it so that everything the teacher needed was on the first page. So let's get ready to name each letter and match it with its sound. This will help you use sounds to spell words. Importantly, I can always click that guidance off. If I've been through these routines several times and I kind of already own this language, I don't need that. So that's important. And then there are tips that allow you to sort of deepen your practice as you go along. You can ignore them the first time you're going through, but they sort of keep you on your toes and remind you of the ways that you can sort of accentuate engagement or make learning more meaningful. And so right now we have the say and do guidance that says, here's the uppercase I, here's the lowercase I. This letter represents the sound I, like in the word it. Now you say this letter and name its sound. Say it aloud or use your thinking voice. One of the nice things is that we have these whiteboard tools that we can toggle on and off. And we might, if we have walkie-talkie kind of kids, we might say, who wants to come up and circle the lowercase I, right? And so I've got it there. I can also just put that in the trash. And there are lots of different ways I can use these different tools. I wanted to point them out. And at this stage, we're going to click through all the letters. Next, we're going to go through a spell it stage. So look at the letters in front of you. Use 2 letters to spell the word in. We are in school, in. So I'm going to use 2 letters to spell the word in. Oopsie, I'm going to turn my, now I need another letter. I'm going to, which letter should we put here? Should we put D here or here? We're going to put it here. Excellent. Now it shows me a model. Let's compare the 2 words. They're different. Ready? I'll hide the model. Let's try again. Now, one of the things that's important is we have this error sequence that allows kids allows groups of kids to make 2 selections. If we haven't made the correct selection, at that point, we're going to move forward. And so we go through these stages. Now we're going to sort letters. My directions say, I'm going to read each word while I point to it. Now I'm going to read aloud. You use your thinking voice. Ready? In, din, and I'll read through the words. And now look at the words in front of you. Pick out the words that end with N. Now, importantly, you'll see we provide an instructional companion that sort of gives you a setup for this. This is an exciting and visually engaging and hopefully accessible platform that's large and sort of attracts your attention. But what we advocate is that every child has sort of manipulable letters at their station or desk or table. You can certainly use our reproducible letters and laminate them for longevity. Lots of kids have their own systems, their alternative pencils, or even magnetic letters on a cookie sheet, whatever is the solution that works. And so I'm just going to click you through. We have now transfer it stage is when we take what we've learned and we start to transfer that knowledge to new context, new skills. Then we have the practice it stage where we start practicing reading our words. And
Maureen, this is a new thing for people who are really familiar with the way that our learning words has worked in the past, because now we have this in what's in this lesson is practice. In some lessons, it's introducing new everyday words and giving teachers strategies to be able to teach kids to read words that are traditionally called sight words or that have traditionally been taught as whole words. We're actually supporting teachers in being able to teach students to go beyond remembering them as whole words.
And look at the individual elements of the words, like we learn other words.
Yes.
So here's the word of. Touch the word to underline it. That's the word of. Touch each phoneme. So we're going to say And now this is where we put, Karen, do you want to sort of be the narrator and I'll be the scribe?
No, sure. It's fine. I just thought that it was important because this is a brand new step of really, even in words that are not we wouldn't traditionally think have standard phoneme representation, that we're still helping kids pay attention to the letters and sounds that are in those words to support them in remembering them and being able to read them across contexts.
Right, and so here we're putting them in Elkin boxes in order, and then we're blending the sounds. And this is an exciting new step. Like you said, Karen, this wasn't part of the old instruction. This is the word to. Say it aloud or use your thinking voice. To. I might use my whiteboard tools here. So now, think about how many sounds you hear in this word to. This word has 2 sounds. Here are the sounds. T, oo. Say it aloud or use your thinking voice. Now we're going to make the sounds. We'll put each sound in its own square in the order that we hear it. T, oo. And now we're going to blend them together. Let's say it aloud or use your thinking voice. Ready? To. And then the last step is read it. And this is when we start to practice reading these words. I lost my mouse for a sec. So I'll read each word in a sentence. Watch my finger. So, the kid can run. And now I'm going to move forward. Get rid of the lid. And then when I select that image, which I didn't do last time, we get a reinforcing image of what the sentence means. Get rid of the lid. So those were the 6 steps of the lessons. I also want to point out importantly, and here I'm going to go back to my deck, but in addition to having the placement tool, we also have, I guess I have to unshare.
Oh, I can get rid of that. Oh, you want to go back to your deck?
Yeah. I just want to go back to my deck really because there was something I wanted to show.
Yep.
I want to show this. And this is what I wanted to show. So every 10 lessons, there are checkpoints. And these checkpoints are these really quick, easy ways to monitor progress. There are checkpoints for learning letters plus, and learning words. And one of the nice things is that when you access the checkpoints, you're invited to make a copy. The copy goes over onto your device or your drive so that we never contain the student's personal information. And yet you have this sort of easy, seamless way to look at not really specific things about who's learning what and what progress looks like. And so over time, this sort of spreadsheet and this line graph gets filled out. So you have this really easy way to see the progress, to see the areas where you might want to target for support and bring in some of the perhaps LessonPix activities, but also a really clear and easy way that you can communicate to other colleagues, to your administrators about what's happening in the classroom, how the progress is going. And then last but not least, I didn't get a chance to sort of dig into the decodable books, but every 10 lessons, there's a decodable book. Readtopia and Readtopia Go subscribers have access to this sort of secret library that lives in Monarch where you can open up these books, and these books are targeted to the specific skills that are taught in that 10 lesson sequence. So unfortunately, I have to share again. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
And now I'm going to go to my Readtopia. Let's go. There are 2 ways to access those books. One of them is I can go into resources. And I can go to my reading library. And this is how I access these collections. I can also access the books directly into those lessons because, as I said, they're paired with the skills that are taught every 10 lessons. As you can see, we really strive for different styles, but also age-appropriate content. So here's a book about a bed bug.
Yeah, it's not going, of course, Maureen. It's staying in Readtopia.
Okay. Wow. Should I stop or do we?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead and share the Monarch Reader. I mean,
Okay.
If you can share your screen, the downside is you have to remember not to show your email and stuff. But if you can
I don't
share the
mind
screen
that.
instead,
Yeah. So
it's just an option there that says share screen instead of share window. I don't know what that is.
Can you see my screen now?
Nope.
I can.
Oh, yes.
Look at that.
Yay. So I'm going to go back because I started. Okay, so here I am. And this, so I go to this reading library. It's under resources, and I'm going to select the Learning Words Decodable Books. You can still see my screen.
No, it's not working.
I can just see your slide deck.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to
other screen.
I'm going to go into Monarch. I'm going to sign in. Am I signed in? Yeah. So now I'm going to search. I don't know what the sound is.
I think you have to stop sharing because right now the wrong thing is being shared.
Okay. This is fun. I need.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I'll just say while Maureen is bringing that up, one of the questions that we frequently get asked is, well, my student can't read those decodable sentences out loud, or they can't read the book out loud. And we would encourage you to apply what you're learning through things like the predictable chart writing routine. You could take those sentences that are decodable sentences at the end of a learning words lesson, and you could write them and cut them up, and students could recreate the sentence. I wouldn't do that every day, but every once in a while as a check-in. You also could do the kind of close technique where you would write the sentence with one word missing and give students a choice of words to be able to fill it in. Again, the point is for them to be reading those sentences in their head if they can't read using
verbally.
Read out loud. But you also could do some occasional scrambling and unscrambling or finding a word that fills in a sentence as ways to do a quick check to get some information about what kids are doing when you're asking them to transfer to the sentence level.
Right. And Maureen, you're moving us through the Monarch reader here successfully. Yeah.
I'm assuming that you guys are reading along using your thinking voice, but I can read it to you. I hopped to a cot. I met a kid in the cot. Look, a bed bug. Put the kid in the tub. Rub, rub, rub. I am a bed bug. I can hop, hop, hop. You cannot get rid of a bed bug.
And one of the key things that we're going to come back to here is like the vast majority of those words, if not all, are decodable at the lesson that you're teaching this at, right? So you're in, I don't know what lesson you were at for that one. 70,
that was lesson 70 to 80.
70 to 80, right? So you're looking at that, and all of these are decodable in that your scope and sequence has introduced all of the mappings, all the grapheme phoneme mappings that are needed to read all of those words. Right?
Excellent seg to your work, Bill.
Yeah. So can you bring up, I don't know if it'll be on this screen or not. Do you have the scope and sequence that you can bring up, or should I just talk to it?
I can bring it up. Why don't you talk to it and I'll figure out how to bring it up, because I'm getting good at sharing my screen.
Fair enough. Okay. So yeah, I think that's a good time for us to transition. So all of that was new. It all came out at the end of last month. And very exciting. It's been a long time coming. And behind it is a scope and sequence that you guys created with Karen, Dr. Erickson. Sorry, Karen, I'm not allowed to call you Dr. Erickson anymore. Only the people who don't respect her call her Dr. Erickson. That's what I was told. But you guys created a scope and sequence that is appropriate for teaching children with complex communication needs and other challenges that focuses on a much smaller subset of words than your generic gen ed scope and sequence for reading. But it's very intentional. It is very much you are systematically going through the easiest path to success for reading for the kids that we're supporting. Karen, you agree with that? You're dealing with special ed kids and people who are in that kind of a setting, and that's who uses. Just in case anybody doesn't know, that's who Readtopia is for. It is not for the masses of kids who are going to be using InterReading or UFly or any of the others. This is a very targeted tool for folks who can't speak, for folks who can't speak verbally. You can't.
It's more generally, Bill, kids who have developmental disabilities that impact some combination of their intellectual abilities, their executive functioning and other cognitive skills, their language skills, their expressive communication skills, some combination of those things. So certainly nearly all students who participate in the alternate assessment in the United States would fall into that category.
Right.
But we have a lot of kids who we put into separate special education classrooms and then tell teachers that they're supposed to use the same curriculum that's being used in gen ed. And if that curriculum was going to work, why do we have to put this kid in a separate setting? And so trying to create instruction that's highly differentiated to meet the full range of skills that are in these separate special education classrooms from oftentimes students who are really beginning to learn how to respond to joint attention, initiate early communication, respond to what other people are asking them, learning that symbols can carry meaning, that language carries meaning, up through oftentimes students who are in those same classrooms who are there because of behavior challenges or because of other challenges, who have much higher reading and writing skills. And Readtopia for the upper elementary is really focused on kids who are more emergent, and it's differentiating up in order to support students who are conventional readers and writers. And then the middle school, high school is really focused on conventional readers and writers, but it's differentiated down to be able to support those students who are still really emerging.
Right.
And so it is a pretty broad population. And from day one, it's been built to address the fact that there are almost always students in these classrooms who can't rely on speech to be heard and understood. And so we need to be thoughtful about making sure that they are active participants in everything we do every day, without adapting things in ways that actually make it so that there's no way for the students to learn the underlying skills that we're trying to get them to learn in the first place.
Right. And I know what she's talking about. I've been lectured on that one. So like putting text and symbols together. I understand. I got that one. So I think that it is a good time to jump into the fact that this scope and sequence, this series of lessons that are used to teach Readtopia. And let's get this from Maureen before we go. The scope and sequence covers multiple of those products, right? It starts from learning letters and goes through learning.
Correct. Yeah, there are three sequences that start where you don't have to know anything about the alphabet to get started learning letters. Learning Letters Plus is when you've sort of built some capacity there and you're ready for, paying more attention to grapheme, phoneme, blending, building simple CVC words, all the way to learning words, which is where the integration with LessonPix is happening, where kids are building more complex single syllable words.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about what we did, because we've been working with Building Wings for a long time on integrating this. For those of you who might remember, about a year ago, we came out with our literacy toolbox, which looks like this. You find it right here in LessonPix, and you can browse it and see everything without signing up. You'll get watermarks on the materials you make. But we have tools in here that are very much targeted to helping kids read. And it started really with a conversation I had with Karen a couple years ago about how can we listen. We have tools here that I think we can bring to bear to help kids to read. Not just non-verbal kids, non-speaking children, but everybody. Mm-hmm. As we started about a year ago, and we made this in the first program that we worked with on it was UFLI, the University of Florida Literacy Institute, and that's actually worked out very well. It works wonderfully. But we have these tools: the phonics finder, the word finder, tools in the sharing center in this story that are all easily. It makes it very easy for you to see the words that are decodable and readable by your students with where they are. And so I'll show you kind of what this looks like. And then the big announcement from a month ago is the fact that UFLI is not the only scope and sequence. Like if you're in here, you could have gone in and seen all the UFLI Foundation. Now you can also go in and see all the Readtopia. And so if you're looking at, lesson 116, ST, it will give you words that don't just, it's not just that they have the ST combination blend, it's that they have that and then they only use sounds and letters or grapheme mappings that you have already taught. In other words, they don't rely on anything that comes after 116. And we mapped every English word into where it would be introduced in Readtopia and in UFly. So if you go in here, you can type in any word. I don't know, drink, maybe. So this tells you drink isn't in Readtopia, but if you look in UFly, it will be. It's probably because NK isn't one of the blends that is taught in Readtopia. But if we do, give me a word here, Karen. We'll do drum. That one will work.
There you go.
So Readtopia will show you that this will be introduced at lesson 123. It tells you what you need to learn in order to be able to decode that and when it'll be there. And these will be different depending on what program. And there will be a third one here in the not too distant future as well. I can't announce it, but I know it's going to be there very shortly. But this is something that we made independent of which program you're using. And I love the fact that it works equally well for a smaller target audience, smaller target scope and sequence.
Yeah. I think that's a really important thing, Bill, like as you don't find drink. The issue is that we do have NK, but N in drink has that nk sound.
Right. This one. There's no GPC mapping for
exactly. And so it's that particular use of N. But we also, so like in Readtopia, in the learning words, we don't use things like, we don't call them blends, we don't call them diagraphs. We intentionally are helping kids learn to recognize different letters, sounds, and combinations of letters using a keyword approach, so that particularly our students who can't rely on speech to be heard and understood, we're not trying to problem solve how are they going to produce a phoneme in isolation.
Right.
They are able to produce or recognize a whole word, and then we use that whole word. So we are teaching the individual letters and sounds, but we're always helping kids find we're explicitly teaching a very high frequency word that uses that sound so that they can take advantage of what the little bit of research we have about being able to use their thinking voice says, that it's easier to think of the phonological, the sound-based representation of a word in your head when it's a word that's very familiar to you. So every single time the C is introduced and talked about in a lesson, kids learn that it's the C, like in the word can. It's a super high frequency word that then they read and spell multiple times. And if they use AAC, it's almost always right in their core vocabulary that they're using to communicate. And so trying to think about the fact that just like UFly, just like other systematic, really structured literacy programs, that scope and sequence, that really clear introduction of every grapheme phoneme, so every set of letters and the sounds that they represent, that gets introduced, and we use the same kind of interleaving. We've always called it repetition with variety, that things get introduced. We don't expect students to learn it to mastery. It's that they keep coming back and coming back to them over time. And so when you see that, so in Readtopia, at this point in learning words, we're not teaching 2-syllable words. Right. And so if you go to type in and go to find a word and it's a 2-syllable word, it's going to show up as not in the current Readtopia sequence.
Correct. Yeah.
We're working hard on building the market of kids who need us to be teaching them 2-syllable words. Right. And the feedback that we're getting on people who started using this when it launched at the end of July is that it's working and their kids are making really good progress. And because each one of the lessons includes attention to not just introducing and teaching the skill and having kids practice that skill, every lesson has a transfer step at the word level and the sentence level. And it's that transfer step that makes this really different than the way we've traditionally taught this population.
And Karen, I would add too that like one of the things I think is really particularly like appealing and supportive about the sequence that you built is this like that in every lesson, we follow the same steps, but also we're visiting and revisiting all the time. And so there's some new stuff, but there's some known stuff. And that mix of new and known, I think, is so powerful in building some confidence and identity as a reader and speller, but also being challenged and discovering kind of new skills and new capacities. And I just think there are so many, decent phonics programs on the market, but taking one lesson and teaching it for 2 weeks, I feel like if I was a kid, I'd be pretty zoned out on that. But this sort of mix of new and known all the time and following the same steps is just like a recipe for engagement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Bill, when we first started having the conversations going back to UFly and thinking about the ways that we could support, in my view, I was really interested first and foremost in supporting speech language pathologists in aligning their speech language intervention with the phonics instruction that was happening in the classroom. And you pretty quickly came up with a solution using LessonPix that allowed speech language pathologists and other educators to be able to generate materials, whatever kind of game or resource they wanted, collection of picture symbols that they might use for different activities, that process allowed them to be, that the way that you built it allowed them to create resources that they could have confidence. Maybe the student couldn't do it yet. They hadn't mastered it yet, but you were giving them one more opportunity.
It had been introduced.
You got it. It had been introduced. They had explicit instruction helping them learn it. And now suddenly the tier 2 intervention or the speech language session was providing students with another opportunity to revisit the skills that had been introduced. And so as you started talking about UFly, I knew we were working on this stuff with Building Wings, and it was very exciting to think that we would be offering that same set of supports in the context of the Readtopia Learning Words, where I think it's even more important for us to do this kind of integrated intervention where the things that we do to provide extra practice or the things that we do to provide speech language intervention, if the materials we use can be tailored so that they're supporting what's happening in the classroom, not matching exactly, but providing an experience with that. And I think that for me, that's what you've done. That's been super exciting. And so I'll let you get back to.
Why don't I show folks? I love the description. It was absolutely fabulous. I do want to show people that so we have not added at this point, we will in the near future, we have not added any new tools to support Readtopia. We simply added it as an option for all the existing Literacy Toolkit tools, and it works flawlessly. So the first is the Phonics Finder. If you're trying to teach lesson 116 and you want to make materials that are specifically targeting the ST sound combination that are decodable at this, throw them into the tray, make some materials just like you normally would. But this is the least exciting thing I think we've made. This one I showed you is actually, this was a debug screen that Karen insisted that I leave in place for the teacher so that they could see how this is built upon itself.
If you have a student who's really struggling to decode a word and you're like, why is that hard for them?
Yeah.
You actually would be able to look up what lessons were those graphemes and phonemes taught. And you could pull that lesson and you could do a repetition of 58 because they're struggling with the short U, or you could do a repetition of 116 because this ST.
I love that you made me keep it. It's great. You were a bully. I love it. So I like bullies. So sometimes. So what we did, the more exciting thing to me is that everywhere in LessonPix, anywhere you see this purple bar. So if you're going to go to the zoo, I'll use this example again. I'm going to go to the zoo and I'm at Readtopia lesson 116. They cannot read alligator. They cannot read annoyed monkey, but these are the words that they know how to decode at this point in their phonics instruction, right? They can decode, they've been taught to decode sad, to the, pig, cub, cat, pig, yak. These are words that are decodable. And this is, it's not even that you have to stick to these words, right? But if you're going to go to the zoo, right, don't use bison, use yak, right? Don't use alligator, use croc, right? Use cub. And you can still use the other words. You can use alligator because maybe they're really into alligators, but make sure that you're aware when the words you're using are not decodable. Make sure you're aware that you are including words that are decodable wherever they are in their phonics journey. And so I think that's really where this has become very, very powerful. And that's true regardless of which program you're using. We have that here in the categories, like if you're looking at clip art. If you are a speech path and you're working on final K, and you say, I want the K sound at the end of the word with no blends, that will absolutely do what it has always done. It'll get you a big old list of final K words, like it always did. But at the top, it will show you the final K words that these kids have learned to decode by now. So they've already learned the double O. They've learned pick and Mike and Mac, right? And you can choose to use those as the final K words. And as you'll see that as you go further along, you'll get a lot more words as you go further down the scope and sequence, right? So there's a lot here that now that they're at lesson 235, they're going to have a lot more words for you to choose from that you should have an expectation that they have learned the skills necessary to do this. And this works in the phonics, the sound finder, the letter finder, the pattern finder, rhyming tool, keyword search. If you look at, race, you're going to find things like jog and run and fast and fled and jump, even though race, they may not have learned yet. No, the CE probably not yet. Okay. So it is something that will show you the words that are related to what you're working on that are decodable by your kids. And the last one to show here really is in a story. And I should also say that in addition to the in a story, there is another section here called thematic units. Both of these have this exact same tool where these are the words about bees that are decodable at lesson 235, or you're at lesson 126. It will show you the words that are related to what you're working on and that are like bug is decodable, bees is not. And it lets you include the words that are going to be related to the subject, but that are decodable by your kids. And so this works everywhere the Literacy Toolkit has always worked. And it now includes Readtopia in addition to UFly Foundations. So that's, thankfully, I'm actually getting good at giving demos of the toolkit. And it's just choose Readtopia and you will align with it. If you're doing your daily routines and you find I need something high contrast that focuses on these words, I need a bingo game to keep these kids engaged, you can absolutely do it using the tools you'll find right here in the Literacy Toolkit. And it does align. I don't want to say perfectly. We haven't had enough people using it yet to find the bugs. There's going to be some. I'm not delusional here. Karen will find some while I'm doing the demos. But it certainly is a very systematic approach. We have mapped every English word that it either is not included in UFly and Readtopia, or it tells you where it is. And it goes through systematically and does that. Mm-hmm. So that is how this works specifically. I have some questions here. Alyssa says having the debug screen is so important for instructional staff who are coming into a special education as a second career or non-traditional pathways or long-term subs to help them understand why. Yeah, absolutely. And let's see. So that's Beth. It looks like Beth. So it's there you go.
I think another thing to show is how you can use text instead of symbols.
Oh, sure.
I think
Karen,
that's
you want me to do
hidden
that one
thing
again?
that a lot of people miss.
Sure.
Yeah. I
Let's
think showing text instead of symbols and showing just a couple of activities that help people see how you can have text separate from symbols.
You got it.
So
Let's do it.
that
Let's do
we
the
can
let's do
help
the zoo
people
in
think through,
Readtopia.
like, yeah.
Let's
What does practice look like for students who are not reading out loud?
Okay, so we have a subject. I don't really care which one it is. We're going to go to the farm and we're going to make scavenger hunt, bingo game, something, right? We're going to do bingo because it's nice because there's
word
two things
bingo.
you need,
Yeah.
right. So
yeah.
So I'm going to go to the farm. I'm going to pick some words that are decodable by my kids, right? So I'm going to grab a few of them here. Pup, I don't know, a rat, sure, a hog, and a hen. You notice chicken is not there, but hen is there. Sure, crops, it's a farm. And I don't know, a pen. Mud is always fun. Okay. So I get some words. I'll get a kid, a goat kid. You'll notice that the human kids aren't here. It really is about being on topic for the subject. Okay. So I've got a bunch of pictures over here in my tray. I hit create materials. I'm going to make a set of bingo cards. I'm going to say bingo. Next.
All right. Stop on this page for a minute.
Sure. Yes, dear.
Because part of what I want people to think through is when you have a room full of students, some of whom use speech to communicate, some of whom can't rely on speech to communicate. One of the things we know we need to do is help those kids who cannot use speech to be able to think words, to look at a printed word and think it without having an adult say it. And so a bingo game is a really great example where we would oftentimes think we want to build the visual support into the bingo card. But what Bill is going to show you is how you can make one version where you have the picture with no words and one version where you have the words with no picture. And now as the teacher, when I'm pulling the word out of the pot, I'm going to pull the picture out and I'm not going to say it. So the kid has to look at the picture of the pig and think
find the word.
Pig, and then find the word on their board without anyone saying the word out loud.
Right.
And
okay, let's do it.
Building that thing that is such the barrier. So go,
she says. So we're gonna make them all lowercase. I think they already are. But if you want, you can. I don't know, Karen. Do you have a preference? Do you like title case? Do you have a care? You don't care. Lowercase.
Lowercase is great.
Okay. I'm going to hit next. I want to call this farm bingo, and I want to make 3x3 squares, but I only want the text. I don't want any images. I got 5 kids in my class, and I'm going to use Century Gothic font and hit finish. It's going to now make, what is this? Cloudflare is going to mess with me today. Oh, they're still in my tray, so let me do it again. We have to have, so those of you who are like, why are you doing Cloudflare? You have to have Cloudflare this time of year. We get attacked every year. All right, let's do 5 words. I want to do Century Gothic font and farm bingo. Next. Oh my goodness. My goodness. Okay. I have never had a demo go like this in LessonPix ever. So, all right, bingo games. If this doesn't work, I'm going to have Lori do it from the other network. Text only for 5 kids.
Wow.
Wow.
You know, sometimes technology happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, this is, I cannot imagine why Cloudflare would be giving me trouble. Cloudflare is a protection from hackers tool that we have to use. And unfortunately it happened. Okay. All right. So I went to a different server and all right, I know how to cheat. So here's our word bingo. And you'll see that it doesn't have pictures on it at all. Okay. And I've chosen to do only the only the words, right? And so then if I want to, I can go back and say, I'm going to hold up these things from the front of the room. I've still got the pictures in my tray, and I want to do 1-page pictures. Okay, so these are great big pictures. I say next. Where's my text placement? I only want the image. I do not want the text. And we're going to do farm pictures and hit finish. Oh my goodness.
I don't know what's going on.
And so we're trying to do just the picture because we don't want the label there, because then kids are just visually matching one word to the other. And there are many, many games, not just bingo, that you can create where you can do this thing where either you're showing the picture without saying it, and the student's thinking it and trying to read it, or you're showing the word, not reading it out loud, and the student then is identifying the picture in their display, or they're matching pictures and words using some of the other resources and materials.
They are not next to each other. They are not tied to each other. Right.
Right.
So this is, here's your pictures, and they're all awesome pictures that you'd either put up on a board, you can use them on a smart board, but you'll notice that the words are not here, and here the pictures are not here. And this separation, we had a conversation on a rooftop bar at CEC. It was this revelation that said, oh, I get it. Because I was always getting grief about using visuals, and it wasn't that. I was getting grief about visuals being directly attached to the word and how the kid doesn't have to read the word, right? And doesn't learn to read the word. And for communication, that's fine, but for reading, it's awful. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Karen?
And I think one of the challenges is that kids do eventually learn to read the word. So people will always say, well, it worked for, right?
Right.
But what 4.5 decades of research now tell us is that it makes it take longer to learn to read when you're pairing a picture with the word. And now that we have really good eye gaze technology that's used in research, we know that what's happening is that they're spending more time looking at the picture than at the word.
Right.
And if we have them separated, we can get good information about kids understanding that what that word is and matching it. But not like, you're not going to spend 10 weeks having kids do file folder activities that are matching the same words to the same pictures. You're going to be having lots and lots of different kinds of activities. And what LessonPix has now created is this way for you to pretty quickly create a novel set of words to be able to repeat the same kind of activity, but to be able to do it with a different set of decodable words each time you do the activity. So I would often say to people, if you find yourself using laminate and Velcro, you're probably planning to repeat it too many times. But when it takes you forever to figure out what are the words that you want and where are those images and how are you going to create those visual supports, you are inclined to laminate and Velcro and have it available for use over and over again. But LessonPix gives you this powerful way to create those almost on the fly. A little bit more than that, I would hope, not quite on the fly, but to be able in a reasonable planning period to put together some resources and not have the exact same ones the next time, but have slightly different ones so that kids are actually learning the skills that we're trying to teach them.
And the nature of the activities, sorry, Bill, but the nature of the activities you provide in LessonPix, like, takes something that could potentially be kind of dry and make it game-based, which is sort of a can't hurt, might help scenario.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. I will show you that you can go the opposite way. So we made, word bingo with picture cards, but you can make picture bingo and you can have
word cards.
Word card, right? I mean, it is every material that it makes sense on. So that means basically anything that's not a matching game inherently.
Yeah.
Now, if you choose any of these and say, I want to make, a spinner, or I want to make dominoes, or any of these, a dial or rolling grids, any of these things, you can now say, I want
dominoes.
To.
Dominoes is another great one where kids are matching. Yeah, sure. In dominoes, they're matching the word to the picture instead of word to word or picture to picture. It's another just sort of natural game that you can be playing.
My goodness.
Will it let you go to in a story again?
Yep, it will. Will it let me? I own this company.
Yeah.
I can't believe Cloudflare is telling me no.
I know.
It's driving me absolutely crazy here.
It knows that you said I was a bully.
So here's your dominoes with just the words on them. Yes, it will let me go back to in a story. It looks like this. In a story. Go ahead.
And so one of the things I was going to say, two things. So Dina just posted a question about if a student doesn't know that word or doesn't have a picture. Like if you're going to do that bingo activity or any of the activities we've just said, you would want to first just go through each one of the pictures and make sure that students know. Like crop was a really interesting one because, right, like that was somebody had to tell you that's what that picture was representing. You're not going to know that on your own if you're a language learner, right. You don't have a pretty big vocabulary.
Correct.
But the part of what's great about these game-like is that there is a process of elimination. That's an important process of elimination that in the context of literacy builds this thing called set for flexibility, where when you don't know, you use what you do know and you think in a flexible way to try to say, well, I know that that's not pig, and I know that it's not dog, and I know that it's not cat, right? And so suddenly you don't have to have mastered what the picture is in order to engage in the kind of games that we were just talking about. But what I wanted to say about the In a Story and the other theme-based resources that you've built is that if you just click on one and then show one more time the way it calls out the words that are in there.
Sure.
I feel like part of what this does is you can choose any of the units, and you then are saying, if you're on lesson 126 in Readtopia and you're using these materials as additional materials in your class,
right?
You know what are the words that you should be focused on and teaching during the book. Because what we tend to do as teachers, regardless of what we're reading or talking to students about, is we choose all the big juicy vocabulary words and
the new stuff. We do the new stuff.
And we're missing an opportunity to know what are the words we could be focusing on that we should be able to stop while we're reading or focus on in one of the activities that's part of these different thematic units that the kids should be able to read, right?
Right.
And so even just having that little clip for yourself as a support to let you know that while you're doing all of these activities, these are words you should be looking for because
that are related. They're related to the book.
They're related to the book. They're going to show up in the resources and the materials that are part of this. And kids should be successful with those in this entirely new context, which is an important thing.
Yeah. And like sick isn't going to show up here because of where they are, but sad is.
Right.
And you know, rest is, which is what the bear needs, right? And nap is. Right. And these are, and when you hit show tray here, it'll let you clear your tray. Like they shouldn't look new to LessonPix users. You throw the pictures in your tray, you need a nap, and he's sad or whatever. The bear is sad, right? And you notice it's a bear that's sad. It's not the 85 other sads that we have because it's related to the bear story, right?
Right.
And it needs a cup of tea, and I don't know. There's a bat. I don't know the story. There's a bat. He sobs. I don't know the word sob, but C is in here, and I think that's actually in there as a sight word, or whatever the word is for those. So, anyways, once you've got the ones that you want to work with, you say create materials. Maybe you get rid of the duplicate one because you got the same picture for two words. And I don't know. We'll make Lori. What am I going to make?
You know, there's so many. I like the park
picture.
I like the parking lot. Yeah,
parking lot.
There's one called Parking Lot. I just toss these with some Hot Wheels and talk about an engaging activity. The kids drive their car up, and I'm like, "Which space are you going to go in?"
Right, and we'll make the boxes.
And there's no expectation. It's just constantly reinforcing what you're learning during your literacy time.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And
Yep.
their Hot Wheels cards park right there. And there's no work, like that isn't hard to do. Laura, you put little 3D humps for the tires to stop.
I know, for me to rip off my front bumper yet.
Lori, such an early childhood educator.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about play, isn't it? And engagement.
Beautiful.
And background knowledge. Yep.
All right. Well, let's take some time. So of the folks that we have here, anybody got questions we want to ask of our friends from Building Wings, or anybody before we go to the comments, if there are any questions there? And maybe I'll show something that's going to come soon. Maybe get feedback from this group live rather than doing it, offline. So any questions here? Are we good?
I have one more thing you can show while you're there. There's a
Sure.
brand new section coming out, being worked on right now, called Fun and Games. And so if you want to find different ways to take your decodable words and make it a game, you could do Connect 4 right there at the top. Guess Who headbands, Hi-Ho Cheerio, and there's a million visuals. I put in videos or pictures to show, because it's hard to explain the rules, but oh my gosh, how many ways can we play Connect 4 and make it fun? And they don't even know. I mean, they love learning through a game, right, Beth?
Somebody posted in the chat earlier, like, how do I send home this book with the parents in order to get them to read it? Like, imagine if instead you're sending home a version of Candyland that's completely made with words that the student should be able to read and practice, where the card that they pick is a picture and the word, right? Like, and suddenly you're helping families build relationship and play with their children while they're practicing what they've been learning, instead of having kids repeat what they did at school in a verbatim way. This is awesome.
I always tell when I do demonstrations of LessonPix, I always tell people I live in the game section of LessonPix. Like, when you look at the list of templates, there's an entire section that is just learning games. And that's where I live. Like, when I make materials, those are my go-to materials. And whether it's an adapted game board or tic-tac-toe or dots and boxes, or that's, the parking lot bingo, like all of those things, that's where I tend to go. And I had responded to somebody earlier who had said about homework, and I said, a lot of times I'll make a game and then I send it home and it's fun work. It's not homework, it's fun work, right? So that we're just kind of taking things and twisting it a little bit on its head. Yes, we want parents to reinforce, but we also want kids to go home and have fun. Instead of to feel like they're being quizzed or some of those
drill and kill, right?
Yeah.
So this is I put this on because I knew Lori would like to see this. So this is her ridiculous Candyland game with a particularly active child who's doing all these actions as he gets them. He's got to do them all in sequence and in order, and he's got to shake and. I mean, he's having a ball and he's learning and he's moving. And
this particular game focuses on motor planning, but also left to right and attention. Obviously he's highly, highly engaged. We'll take our Candyland cards that are custom and hide them around the house. And so when they find one, they can move to that color and go on. And Candyland is one of our cards under playing cards, I believe.
Yeah, it matches. Yep.
And
so
there's so many different ways to play. And back in the Fun and Games, there's ones that are movements. There's different toys as well. So. Yep,
we do Guess Who. We have every Guess Who imaginable in here. All the different styles here that fit the different, the 1975 version of Guess Who and the 2025 version of Guess Who and all those. So yes, you actually got quite a bit in here. I didn't realize you'd put so many in here.
Yeah.
There's lots and lots. So
it's awesome.
Okay. I see lots of thanks. I see lots of
there was one more question that if I could just address it briefly,
sure.
About using or not using AAC devices to blend.
Yeah.
The issue is that there's not a great match between the 26 letters of the alphabet and the 44 primary phonemes, not to mention even those phonemes. I said before, this notion of set for flexibility, or variability, the ability to go from p, e, n, which you would learn if you had a structured phonics program in North Carolina, but no one in North Carolina pronounces the word P-E-N as p, e, n. And so a child who's sitting in a classroom would hear p, e, n. They would blend that together to get p, n, and then they would use their set for variability to go, oh yeah, that's pan, right? Because that's how we say it around here. And that's this idea of, can you learn the graphemes and phonemes? Can you blend them together? But reading requires that extra step. And the most recent research on this set for variability says that it's the strongest predictor in kindergarten of later reading outcomes, that it's a really critical thing. And so if we're having kids choose letters that then the device says the sound, or we're having kids choose letters and so they go p, and the P goes up into the message window, and then they hit the E and the eh goes in the window, and they hit the eh, the n, and the n goes in the window. They're not getting this into their head, right? This set for variability. Like, I have to be able to get to this set, and it is set for flexibility, not variability. Set for flexibility. Can you be flexible in that pronunciation? And so early, like when we're doing learning letters in the Readtopia sequence, we might have kids play with a phonics keyboard that each letter is mapped to a single sound, because when we're first teaching the alphabet, we teach the most common phoneme that goes with each one of those letters. But as soon as we get to Learning Letters Plus, where we're doing phonemic awareness, that flexibility becomes really critical. And you need to be able to get beyond just the single grapheme phoneme connection and recognize that the A has more than one sound, and the C has a soft sound and a hard sound, and it sounds even differently when it's paired with an H, and it, like that kind of thing, you can't do it on a phonetic keyboard. And recently I saw somebody had posted where they took every possible grapheme blend, digraph, everything that gets taught in UFly, and they put it onto a single keyboard so that kids could choose a button in order to get their device to say any of those sounds. And then the device would do all of the work of blending. And that's going to make the kid look okay during the lesson, but it's not going to help them get that final step of being able to do that really critical. In North Carolina, we talk about identifying the sounds, blending them together, and then mashing them around a little bit to make it sound like a word you've heard before. We're having the device do that final step. And then we end up with kids who aren't able to transfer the things that we're teaching them to use them in their own reading and their own spelling. They look fine in the lesson, but we're not getting that generalization and application and use because we're not teaching this really important step.
Gotcha. Well, I learned a lot. And I think one of the things that jumps out at what you said there is, all right, I am not qualified to say this. Just so it's not going to stop me. But why would, like, I understand why you would be playing with sounds on a game or on a tablet or on a website, but why would you be using a communication device? Because if they're going to communicate that way, you're going to have all 44 phonemes, and they're going to have to learn a whole different alphabet to be able to communicate phonetically.
Yeah. And people are doing that. And their biggest rationale is teachers are asking, mostly it's happening, teachers are asking speech language pathologists to help the kid participate in the oral recitation part.
And there may be value in that, but it's not reading.
But it's not
right?
helping them get better at reading.
Right.
And so if
Right.
that's the time that the child is getting their reading instruction,
Then
then you're valuing today's participation success over long-term success, being able to say whatever they want to whomever they want, whenever they want.
Yeah.
And I've said many times in lots of trainings this summer, like, I am always going to give up today's success for an adult who has control over their life. And having control of your life requires you to be able to communicate in really flexible ways. And if you use AAC, that means you have to be able to spell. And so you might not today look as successful. And my whole early career, I was the queen of adapting every activity for participation. Right. And in the process, did lots of kids a disservice because I forgot about the long-term goal of the underlying learning.
So you can't be hard on yourself because of you. I've learned that if you judge yourself in hindsight, we all fail.
Exactly. When we know better, we do better.
Yeah.
There you go.
Karen, I loved your explanation. It was a great question. And I also think that what I think I heard you say is that we're skipping that critical step of thinking the word. I love that idea of thinking the word, right? That's a new phrase that really clicks for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm also very appreciative that you took the time to walk through that, because as teachers, we don't stop and think, and we are reinforced by the here and now. We want every kid to engage.
Yeah.
And that is something very serious to think of. Is it really helping them to cross over to that last step of reading?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So one of the things I do a lot of is I do work with a lot of adults with severe disabilities, and I will tell you that the difference. I can't judge their cognitive abilities. That's not where I am, but I meet lots of them who can and can't read, and the difference between the two is it is too much to be correlation. It is causation. It is too much to be. And Karen, you do this more than I do. It is too much to be coincidental that the folks who learn to read are treated with more respect. They have much higher expectations put on them. It is an enormous difference in their lives.
We in special education, our mantra has always been that we need to support independence. But the truth is, none of us are really independent.
Right.
But when you're highly literate, you have a ton of control over your interdependence on everybody else. Right. And the more significant your needs are for support from other people, those of you who don't know me, I'm not even 5'2". It's kind of hard for me to go grocery shopping by myself. I stop other people in the grocery store all the time to ask for help. Hi, my friend Beth. And so I have to ask for help all the time. Just this weekend, at least a dozen times, I was in a friend's house and I would say to the 3 other people there, hey, I need a tall friend to come and help me right now. The more dependent you are on other people in the world, the more communication skills you need to have control over that.
Yeah.
And so it isn't, for me, it's not about being independent. It's about having control over my interdependence, knowing who are the people that are likely to stop and help me and who are the people that I shouldn't bother ask, and knowing when I just need to complain because they keep putting what I want on the top shelf. And if they would just move it, I wouldn't have to ask all the time.
Yeah. So
well said. That was beautiful.
I like all that. I like every bit of that. I don't know if I'm going to bother with my demo, but I want to thank everybody first, in case our guests, our viewers, bail before the demo.
Go
the trial. But that was wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm really
glad. But only if you
that.
Start with your video.
Okay. Here we go. Here we go. There you go. Yay. I started with the video.
Oh, I love it.
All right. You can't see my screen yet. Okay. So rather than move me over here. So Karen and I presented at ASHA last year, and I really wanted to make this crazy video, like graph showing how the language expands as you move through a systematic phonics instruction. And I did, and it was cool, but it really blew apart pretty quickly because you learn so many things so quickly that you get a big jumble of words, and it was a mess. But I knew that I had in LessonPix, I have the data to do a number of things. A lot of you have seen our minimal pairs tool. We have the relationship between words we have embedded within LessonPix. And I wanted a way to play with that. I wanted a way to show that as people wanted to make things for their classroom and things like that. So I did this. And it's not ready for prime time, but it's ready for demo. So this is a tool, and there's going to be 3 different tabs here. This is just the first one. It's the one that I could do first. But it lets you put in which phonics system you're using and what lesson you're on. And I don't know, I'll use something early, like short U. And then you can give it a starting word, or you can hit random. It'll pick you a starting word, and it lets you build word chains. Is this going to give me grief here too? No, don't do this to me. Hold on a second. What's it doing? All right, son. There we go. All right, like I said, it needs to be tested. It lets you build word chains that are all guaranteed to be decodable at the level you're at. And so you can basically navigate this graph and build the word chains you want. It takes the pictures down here. I will make sure that you already can put these pictures in the tray, and as you make these, if you want to choose, just like you saw before, the ability to use the words instead of the pictures, you can. The load all button doesn't work yet, or I would have used it by now. But yes, you can go in here, make picture cards, make whatever else you want with the pictures and the words that you want. But it will let you navigate the language to build word chains and related words based on where you are in the sequence. So I'm at lesson 58, but I really want to work from the word cat, which has nothing to do with lesson 58. But these are all the ones that are decodable at lesson 58. Hello, Maureen, is that you?
Yeah, that was me. Sorry. My son monkeys with my ringtone. Sorry about that.
The look on your face meant it was you. You're good. So, but it lets you build the chain left and right. So you can say, what do I want to put before that? I can do, cat and at and fat and fit and fib, and it's walking you into this chain. Coming out of it, you can do mat, and you can do met, and then you can do set. And if you were further on, you'd be able to do sent, and you'd be able to do, things like that. And obviously, the further you are in here, the more flexible it is. So I want to be able to make this something that is usable to build these relationships for people to throw these on the table and have them kids put them in an order where they're related, right? To let people, even if you just take this and copy it, right? And use whatever tool you want, the ability to know that the chain you're building is decodable at the lesson that you're teaching is useful. The second 2 tabs on this thing will be, one is very simple. Make me 5 really good chains for this lesson. So they only use words from this lesson if I can, until I have to introduce something else in order to get it out to 6 or 7 or whatever number you give it. And that works. I just haven't gotten it integrated yet. And the last, which doesn't work yet, is give me 2 words and find a decodable path between any 2 words and make the path that, or paths that best fit that, and be able to quickly bring them down here, load them up, and make materials too. So, Erin, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, I've been trying to get people to think about the fact that programs like Readtopia are the tier 1 universal instruction that should be happening in every classroom, every kid should be getting 90 to 120 minutes a day of high quality, very systematic and structured instruction like is offered through Readtopia. And kids who continue to struggle and need more, we should be offering them the same kind of tier 2 and tier 3 supports that other kids get. We are still battling mightily to get teachers to find 90 to 120 minutes to focus on literacy instruction every day. We finally now have a instructional program that's robust enough that you really can do what Readtopia tells you to do, and you will fill that time in really meaningful ways. And so I think that this, the word chain tool provides a really nice way to create the additional practice, that you really can create some additional materials for kids. Like in the Readtopia lessons, we have students build 6 words. There might be some students who need more than 6. There might be some students who it's their favorite thing to do. I know more than one. And so being able to create some additional chains that use the same letters and sounds that were taught in a lesson is a nice way to think about some additions for that.
So do you have any other ways that you would structure these other than those 3?
Yeah, well, I think I would have to play a little bit for those 3 to get to the place where I think, ooh, now I would like it too.
Right, right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so I am, I think this is a better use than trying to get that that video of the expanding universe of words that I kept trying to get, but kept coming out horribly. I wasted so many hours that I decided, hey, let's actually do something that might let these folks make more decodable materials more easily. And by the way, the way this works for these is that these are both single letter changes and minimal pairs. So they are words where one letter changes and one sound changes, no matter what. So even if you go to you fly something really high, like I don't know, 112, right? So you've got bear and pair. All of these have exactly one. They have exactly one letter and one phoneme change to relate the 2 words.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah.
So it is. I think it is a useful tool down the road. So I like I like seeing things a little bit early. So, all right. I'm going to bring us back together. We can wrap up. Alyssa, I think she was talking about your alarm horn there, Maureen.
No, it was the top secret video.
Okay. That was
We're
Lori.
all
That's
big
all
fans
Lori's
of it.
doing.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, Kelly, you're very welcome for the presentation. I'm glad to do this. We need to do this more. Anne loves LessonPix. I love when people love. I have a thing for that too, don't I, Lori? Don't I have people love LessonPix? Yeah. So there you go. Best transition ever. So I appreciate everybody who commented, and I appreciate all of you guys for joining us here today. We will do this more often as the year starts, and I hope everybody's having a good time. I hope LessonPix is helping you and making your life a little bit easier in your classroom. And sorry we went long. We always go long here. We don't usually go this long.
Especially if you put Bill and I in the same place, you're in trouble.
We're going to have to beat Cloudflare to death here. So, all right. I appreciate it, guys. I'm going to stop the stream. Bye, everybody. If you all want to stay here for a second, we'll chat for a second. Bye, guys.
Thank you.